Okay, so I am recording now, and I will start sharing here. Okay, seat of the pants time here. So I'm going to hop on over to WebTech and then go to, yes, I know, thank you, Google. Why does it think we're all children, but we have to be told all the time? All right, let's see. So classwork, and we are in week 3, and there is the midterm exam, which I'm still trying to figure out. I'm sure that I told it to schedule for 5:30 yesterday, and yet it refused to show up for anybody until 5:35. I don't know what that's about, but I want to find out because that's just weird. Anyway, here it is. Looks like everyone took it.
5:25.
What's that?
Do it for 5:25 next time.
I will. I want to do that and then see if it actually pops up at 5:30. If that happens, that's just weird. I would suspect some error in the code somewhere. Although what it would be, I can't imagine. It's not hard to take a timestamp, right? But anyway, so this is the midterm exam instructions and starter file. And so the idea is that you download this TXT file. That's the content for your HTML page. And then it also contains the instructions. So the instructions are the content for the web page, and then the CSS instructions are here. I originally had the CSS instructions actually built into the content, but it kind of got out of control. So I split them up for you guys this way. So I can't remember if I downloaded this or not. Let me just go ahead and download it here. And Google makes me open it in a new window before I can download it, because Google is Google. And now I can download it. And there she goes. And let's see, where are we at? I'm going to go to here. And I guess this is technically Unit 9, so I'll go ahead and make a Unit 9 folder. One of the things that I forgot to give you guys instructions for is what to name your folder. You guys, by now, you know what I like to get. I like to get file names that start with your last name so that they go nice and alphabetical for me, but then after that, something else is included in the file name that tells me what it is. Like, is this chapter 9? Is it the midterm exam? Whatever. So I forgot to put that on, but I think most of you guys did follow that anyway, so that was nice. Let's see here. Where's my downloads? There it is. Midterm content. Okay, so I'm just going to use this as my root directory since, like I said, I didn't give you guys any, well, let me go ahead and just make another one here, as you guys would have had to do. So I will make a new root directory, and let's Bispo midterm, and then just throw this in here. Only one person, I believe, one person actually submitted this, and I was happy to see that they made a subfolder. They called it resource, but resources is what I'm used to seeing. So I'm still trying to decide whether that's worth a half a point of extra credit or not. If you're the person who did that, hang in there. You may be getting another half point. So anyway, but that's what I would do. I would throw anything that I'm using for the building of a site or a page or whatever into a resources subfolder. I also know that I'm going to be doing a styles subfolder or a CSS subfolder, so I just go ahead and make it now. And then I'm going to go into resources and crack this guy open. This should just open up in Notepad. And I'm going to take all of this stuff and copy and paste it into a new document, HTML document. So I will go here, my coding environment, make myself a new document here. Grab all this stuff, Control A, or if you wanted to, like, there's nothing wrong with building a page here in Notepad. It's a pain, but you could totally do it. Like any plain text environment would work. It's no problem. I just prefer to work over here because you've got color coding and auto completion and stuff like that. Okay, so that's not what I wanted. Are you going to allow me to copy or not? Copy. There we
No,
go.
but I know whose answer that one was.
Hopefully not. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, let me go ahead and save this. Now this one, I did not make a deal about, as I've said, naming of the root directory. Goodness. However, I do make a deal about what you name the HTML file. Definitely for the home page of a website. And anytime you've got a standalone HTML file, unless you already know that it's going to be incorporated into an already existing website, someone says, hey, you got to build the contact page for us, then obviously you wouldn't name it index. But anything else, if you're just doing a single document, yeah, call it index. Index.html, later on you'll be doing index.php or index.js or something like that. There it is in the right directory. We'll go ahead and save it. And shaboom. So for this, I mean, you could either preview in the browser or you can start by just previewing it over here. And so on. So I'll just be kind of copying and pasting or cutting and pasting this into the document as I go. I don't like building it into the content here. I like building it kind of above or below the content and then cutting and pasting into it, just for indenting and stuff like that. So the first thing that you want to worry about is the document elements, right? The document itself. You have to make a valid HTML document, and that should always be the first thing that you do. So the first thing here is going to be the doc type. And if you're working in a coding environment like this, look, it'll do it for you. If I did hit exclamation point and just hit enter, and it's done it for me. Now, some of you have been paying attention to what goes on with the validator tool. And I may have even mentioned at some point that actually the elements of like head and body are not actually even technically required. It'll validate without those. But if you are going to put them in, then you have to do them in a certain way. If you don't open them up in the right place, then the browser and the validator tool will create one for you, and then it will notice that you've opened up another body element somewhere further down the way, and it'll start throwing errors at you, which is no good. But even though I know that this is possible to not have these elements in there, I've never once attempted to build an HTML page without actually putting these in. I just always do it. And I think that every developer that I've ever known has gone ahead and built them as well. Okay, so let's see, the head, you already know it needs to have two things. It's going to need a third thing, and yeah, it's going to need a third thing too, but definitely two things you always put in there. You always have meta charset equals, and then UTF-8. I noticed that someone capitalized UTF. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that I know of. I think it's perfectly fine. And you're going to need a title. And at this point, this is what I look for the first section. If you've already looked at the gradebook, then you can see some of my rubric breakdown. But the first thing that I look for, other than code validation and directory structure and things like that, and the fact, is it index.html or is it named something else? This is what I look for right after that. This is what I consider to be a completed HTML document. You have this stuff, except for one little thing. There needs to be some content in the title. I'm going to go ahead and take this IS250. Usually it's the very top piece of content, and you can just kind of slap it in there. I shouldn't say usually, a lot of the time. Sometimes it gets a little more specific than that if you start getting heavily into SEO. This would not be a bad time to save, so I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to start getting this content into the body elements. Now I could at this point just cut and paste all that stuff in there, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to go ahead and just put in some of the structural elements that we've been doing all along, right? So just about every demo, in fact, I think every demo that we've done, except maybe Unit 1, we've had a header and a main element inside the body. And there may be other stuff too. Like there might be sections inside of main. There might be a footer below main. Just recently, we've added a nav element. Obviously, we don't need that here. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea just to go ahead and start with this right off the bat. Just create a header. and then create a main element. And go ahead and even open those guys up if you want to. So I think that in the instructions here, let's see, it's a little bit hard to read, but let's go ahead and just take a look and start reading these instructions, right, to make sure I don't mess anything up. These are the things that need to get into the page somewhere. The basic elements of the document, we've already done that. And then at least 2 structural elements. Okay, so I've got that, right? So if you could go further than this if you wanted to, certainly. But if you're just like, yeah, I just want to nail the points, then boom, got that part done. Paragraphs and headings, that's what this stuff is all about. An unordered list. This looks like an unordered list to me. There were some people who did lists elsewhere, but I was kind of scratching my head at that because this is the thing that has a bunch of short things, each on their own line. This is definitely what I would zero in on for the unordered list. And then a hyperlink. And looky here, this has got to be the hyperlink, right? This is the one that looks like an actual pathway. So that must be it. So I'm going to go ahead in the header. I'm going to start out with an H1. If you did an H2, that's perfectly fine because we have been doing that in the textbook demos, right? For whatever reason, the textbook demo started with an H2 up top instead of an H1 like you normally see. And I haven't been second guessing it too much. I think it's okay. But I would start with an H1 personally. And then you might think about even putting this one in there. This would be a possibility. You could put this into the header as like an H2 along there, or you could say an H2 inside of main. I don't even, I mean, either or, they would both be perfectly fine. I guess I'll go ahead and put it inside of here. So I'll make an H2 here and paste that in. Now the only content that you were to change was this thing right here. Now, some people did change other stuff than that. No matter, I know, and you guys, you're not the only ones, okay? Like I've done tests like this for a long time, many, many years, and no matter how much I harp on it, that's like certain people, they just can't help it. They're like, no, I just have to change this because it makes more sense this way or whatever. But anyway, this was the only thing that I actually gave you permission to change in terms of the content. Everything else was to stay exactly the same, no additions, no subtractions, no modifications. Well, okay, so there were one other thing you could do is a modification for the extra credit, but that's it. Okay, so after this, I've told you guys before that I like to identify the headings first. You don't have to. You can go straight down and say, okay, this looks more like a paragraph. This one looks like maybe an H3. Here's another paragraph, and just go right down. But I don't know. I like to think of it structurally first, or not structurally, hierarchically. So hypertext markup language, and somewhere in the instructions, and for the CSS, I even gave you a hint that, yeah, I expect this one to be a heading, and I expect this guy to be a heading too. So I will cut those. Now, if you do that, if you do it the way that I do and get the headings first, then leave a double return or a little comment in here or something like that, just so you remember, oh yeah, this is where that H3 went. And then here is the other one, cascading style sheets. I'll cut that, but leave the double return or quadruple return really. And put the heading up in here, like so. And I can start to see these over here. And anytime you start to feel like you're not trusting this anymore, absolutely save this and go check it out in the browser instead and see what's going on. Some unexpected things happen. Some things happen that I still don't know why. Like Phoebe, your document, for whatever reason, takes a long time for Edge to load, and I have not figured out why, because it opens up like that in Firefox, just like the others, but for whatever reason, yours opens up in Edge, like it takes about 20 seconds for it to actually load the file. And I'm going to be poring over that this weekend and seeing if I can figure out what it is that's causing that. It's always useful to check it out in the browser, but for the time being, when you're just building it, any kind of preview is fine. So I got these guys, and I think those are the headings that I need. Yeah, the rest of them are paragraphs and lists, body copy, so I'll go ahead and start getting those in. So here's this guy right here. Actually, I shouldn't do it that way. When I triple click, I'm lazy and I do that, but what it does, it grabs the extra carriage return too, which means I'm going to have to delete it later. As usual, being lazy winds up causing more work for me in the long run. It's just something that it took me about 50 years to learn that rule, but I'm finally starting to get a handle on it. So yeah, just make the paragraph and then paste it right in. Any questions so far? How are you guys doing over there? Let me know if there are any. Otherwise, I'll just kind of jam on through here.
You're driving the trains.
Any questions?
Great.
All right, cool. Let me know if there is anything. Okay, so let's see. This part is underneath the, the hypertext mark. Let's see, this guy right here. I can always, I've still got the plain text document open, so I can always check it here. So hypertext markup, what we got first? Yes, that guy right there. So I know that this guy's going to be a list. I'm going to go ahead and get all the paragraphs first because that seems easiest. So I'll get this guy. It's going to be under underneath that one. Paragraph and paste. And then this one also is, a couple of people had this as a link that was just what I call like a floater file, which means that it's not contained within a block level text element like a paragraph or a heading or something like that. And even though it set my teeth on edge, no, it's not that bad, but I didn't take off any points for it because it doesn't actually break anything. But I think it's always a good idea whenever you have anything that's, well, text, it should go into one of these text elements here. But it's not actually wrong not to, so I didn't take off any points for that. There we go. Put that guy in there. Now this is going to have to turn into a hyperlink. I'll get to that later. Still getting the basic text elements here. Okay, so this goes right underneath that. Lots of paragraphs, as is normal. Let me pull this out just a little bit here. There we go. That's a little more comfortable. Paste.
Well, the anchor itself has a built-in text element. So, anyways.
Yeah, you're right. It is technically a text element. It's not a block level text element, though. A block level text element is one that starts and ends on its own line. And in that sense, an anchor is kind of like a span. It can exist outside of a paragraph, but it kind of feels wrong, kind of to just let it float out there. But like I said, it's not actually wrong. So I didn't take
well,
off any
and
points.
you could even still design it just simply by identifying the anchor element within CSS.
What do you mean?
Yes, you could even still. It's not that there's really any limitations to it. Moving on.
Oh, you mean do a display block on it? Yeah, you can certainly do that.
Yeah, I mean you could still design it just like you would any other block, just simply by allocating design for CSS with the anchor element.
Yeah, that's design considerations though. I'm talking structure and hierarchy. You know, stuff that's built into the actual markup of the document. So the style sheet is something that's kind of added over onto the top of that.
Right.
Kind of like weeds growing on top of the structure, right? So, but you know, as I was talking, there is one place where I don't do that, and that is like the navigation element that we started working on I guess it was Tuesday, where I'm putting anchor elements directly inside of nav. So in that case, I'm kind of breaking my own rule there. Okay, so this stuff is a couple of paragraphs that go underneath the cascading style sheet. At least this one is. Some people took this last little bit and put it into a footer, so maybe I'll go ahead and do that as well. But just as long as everyone's aware, it's not actually necessary because I only asked for 2 structural elements here. But I'll go ahead and put a footer underneath main, or the footer could go inside main. Main elements and articles and so on can have headers and footers inside of them, as well as outside of them. Remember our definition that, and this definition doesn't really make sense for a single page document, but if you imagine this is one document out of many in a website, which content would be the stuff that would stay the same on every page and which content would be the stuff that would change on every page. So this is very abstract and hypothetical because we only have one page, but generally speaking, I would still think of the stuff inside main element as just being, well, the main content. And if I did have another page connected to this one, this is the content that would change for that other page, whatever it would happen to be, contact or who knows what. Okay, so there we go. And last structure. Now notice, even though I put a footer here, I still put it into a paragraph, right? Let's go ahead and get the unordered list in here. This is going to be the last bit. So I just want to make sure I get it into the right place. So I'll check my plain text document again. And there it is, right underneath the paragraph that starts with the word first, which is, oh, there it is, right in front of me. So like I've told you guys, I kind of like making these, I think. If you have got several of them in a row, then I just go ahead and do that and then grab these one at a time. Whatever's easiest for you. The workflow doesn't matter so much. And you can see this starting to assemble itself over here as we build it. These two structures, yeah, there we go. Paragraphs and headings, yes, we've got that. I'm checking off to make sure that I've actually done all these things as I'm pasting in these requirements here. Okay, and last one. And then if you're anything like me, you've got to go down and get rid of the extra white space down here because it's just going to bug otherwise. There we go. Okay, so yeah, things are looking decent here, I think. So let's see, what else is up next? So we've got the basic elements of the document. That was HTML, the doc type, the root element HTML with lang equals n on it. Then the head and body. The head has a meta char set equals UTF-8 and a title with some content in it. That's all up here. And then we've got the structural elements here. Header, main, and footer. The instructions ask for 2. We put in 3 just to make sure. And then the rest of it, we've got our block level text elements here, building it up. Now, like I said, you can go further if you want to. Personally, whenever I see headings followed by content, like H2 followed by paragraph, then H3 followed by paragraphs and so on, and another H3, I immediately start thinking about putting these into sections. But that's totally up to you. Let's see, so what else? Paragraphs and headings, we've got the unordered list, we've got the hyperlinks, so we've got to do that next. So that's going to be this guy right down here. And right after I put this in, I'm going to go ahead and check it in the browser. So it's going to be an anchor element, and there has to be a hyperreference. And the opening and closing anchor elements have to surround the code, which is meant to be clickable. So let me go ahead and put this here now, because some of you did this. Copy this and say, okay, so this is a link. Paste it in. Cool. I'm going to save it. So let me go ahead and find it. Now I'll crack it open in the browser here. And here it is. It's looking like an HTML document to me. I think we were mostly pretty good, but I am going to go ahead and click on this link and notice it says file not found. Why is that? Well, because you need the protocol. If it doesn't have an HTTP or HTTPS protocol, then it thinks it's looking for a local file. Like it thinks that it's going to be looking into a directory named this and another directory inside of that, for this. And it's just, of course, it's not going to find it because we don't have that. So what you want to be able to do, now what you can do, you can take this and you can copy and paste this into a browser, and the browser will be smart enough to figure it out because the browser already knows, oh, right, I'm already attaching that protocol. So you paste it in here, make sure it goes to the right place. Go away. And then you can do a Control-L and copy and paste this, and this is the entire web address now. It has the HTTPS protocol. And then instead of using the simple version of it here, go ahead and paste in the whole thing, including the protocol. So now I save that, and I go back over to the browser, close that up, and refresh this, and tap on it, and look, it's showing up purple now. It looks like a visited link now, and there it is. Cool. Back button, looking good. So it wouldn't be too early a time to validate this. If you were thinking about it, you can certainly always validate more than once. Validate early and often, right? I'm going to go ahead and hold off because there is at least one more thing that we're going to have to do to this. Let me look back at the midterm exam instructions here. And this is the instructions for to do CSS here. Now it says to do, doing an external CSS file is what you want to do for this. And so that means that I'm going to have a link element in here. So going back to my coding environment, I'll go ahead and put that in up here. Rel equals style sheet. Oops. Href equals, now I don't have one yet, but I'll go ahead and type it in anyway. I'm going to call it styles/main.css because that's the file name that we've been using the whole semester, so why not? I usually use default.css, but a lot of people use main. So now I'll go ahead and save it. And I'm still not going to I'm not going to validate it yet anyway because there's still some extra credit that I'm going to do in here. So once I'm done with everything and I'm absolutely sure of it, and I've looked at my folder structure and my ducks are all in a row, then like the last thing I'll do before submitting or sharing, that's when I'll go ahead and take a look at the validator tool. But let's go ahead and get started with main.css here. So I'm going to make a new document. CSS. And as you guys know, I sometimes like to put a little comment upstairs here just to let myself know visually where I'm at. Put it into styles, and we're going to call this main.css. And I personally like to do something just to make sure that everything's working like this. And yeah, okay, so code thinks it's working, but I'm going to check it in the browser too. And where I'm at, down here somewhere. There we go. Refresh it, and yes, style sheet is working. That makes me happy. I'm ready to go back and actually do some designing now. Get rid of that. Okay, looking at the instructions. Okay, so the first thing it says, take the HTML element, change the background color RGB values to 240, 240, 240. So this is where, there's almost always like one thing that I forget. This time there were two. And as some of you noticed, I think Matt was the first person to notice it. There was something in here that just didn't make sense if you didn't have a background color on the body element. So all that means is that I was pretty loose with the grading on this part when it comes to backgrounds and the color of the border top and so on. But let me go ahead and go through what I was hoping for. So I'll go ahead and do this part first. The HTML element, change the background color RGB values to 240, 240, 240. Let's go ahead and do it. Here's the HTML selector. Background color, or if you're like me and you're a lazy typist, then you just do background. RGB 240, 240, 240. And that gives you a light gray color. So if I go over here and check it in the browser, then yeah, it's a little bit lighter than white, or sorry, a little bit darker than white, just about enough to create a contrast for the white background if we put one on the body element, which is the part that I left out. Okay, so we've got that. The next part is to change the font to Open Sans, available from Google Fonts. Download both the regular and bold 700. So the regular 400 and bold 700. This is what we did for review on Tuesday, but I think I did Lotto instead of Open Sans. So here I will go to Fonts. Let me see if there's anything in here already, and yes, there already is, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that. So if you're starting with this, and I was expecting to scroll down like and see it like right away. There it is. Not that one. This guy right here. But if you didn't, the word sans should be an idea that you can choose like a sans serif here and uncheck the other ones. But Open Sans has been fairly popular for a while now, and it should be fairly high on the home page here. So I'll tap that one, and then I'm going to be adding the regular 400 and the bold 700. There it is. And there they are. Now, despite the fact that we did both the demo and the review by going to the at import here, several people chose to go with the link here, which there's nothing wrong with doing that. You can totally do this and put it into your HTML instead of doing the at import into the CSS. I was just a little bit surprised by that because I hadn't actually shown you about using it this way. So I'm going to grab this at import. Now, I think that I had, in fact, I remember for sure I had told you guys that one trouble that I have had in the past, sometimes, and I have still haven't been able to figure out why or the wherefores of it, but sometimes if the import isn't right at the top, I've had some problems with it. So everything's working. We got the add import. I checked the link, and it actually does have that font face there, and I'm using it correctly and everything, and it's just refusing to work. If that's happening to you, then take that import and make sure you put it up here at the top before anything else. I'm not talking about this comment. Comment's fine. But I mean before any rules, like even before the HTML rule, even though this is not actually going to be using the font or anything like that. I don't know why. I don't know why. But sometimes this causes a problem and sometimes it doesn't. And with one person's test, it caused a problem. And it had been long enough since I had run into this that even though we just talked about it, I was still scratching my head over it, and it took me a few minutes to figure it out until I finally did. But anyway, if it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, and you're sure you're doing it right, try that. See if that might be the problem. Get that right at the beginning. Okay, so you can either type out the usage yourself, or if you happen to recall, you can scroll down here and just grab this rule right here. And I'm going to make a new selector for body. And let's see, open it up, paste it on in there. And there we go. We've got our use of open sans in here. So that's that part. What's next? Line height, color, padding. So these are all, line height is type formatting, color is type formatting, padding is box model, but they're all going to be put onto the body element, so I just kind of group them all together here. Okay, so line height first, we'll just go ahead and get these in one at a time. I'm going to do line height 1.5 M. I've always done it verbose like this. As you guys have been reminding me, it actually works like this. This was actually, as I recall, it was a Firefox innovation. Firefox started allowing this years before anybody else did. So for the longest time, we couldn't do this. So of course, I just forgot about it. But yeah, you can totally do this, but I like to be explicit about it and put it in there. Let's see, the color, I think I asked for all 80s. So color, RGB, 80, 80, 80, or sorry, not a comma at the end. There we go. Turns it into a dark gray. Maybe not quite dark enough, but close. I'd have to run this through an accessibility checker and see if I have enough contrast there. But anyway, the contrast will be fine once I put in the part that I forgot to do, which is this guy right here. The one instruction other than the file name that I forgot about was to put a background on this guy and white. You can use the English-based one, which is what I do, or if you're getting used to the hexadecimal, then you can do all zeros like this. Oh, no, not all zeros, that's black. Do all Fs. There we go, that's white. Or you could do RGB 255, 255, 255. That also is white. So a number of ways you can get there to the same place that will work. You can even put in CMYK values too, although I've never known anyone to do that for anything other than a print style sheet. But I think the easiest one for something like that is just white. So if I test this in a browser, I just saved it. Go back over here and refresh. Then I'm seeing the white. You can see a little bit of the light gray of the HTML around here because we haven't done anything else to this yet. Let's see. Give the body a maximum width and center it within the browser viewport. You guys did great at this. Overall, you've done better than any class that I think I've had in HTML for the midterm. It's easy to remember, but for some reason, lots of people seem to forget how to do it. So yeah, it's a max width. I didn't tell you how wide You could put in whatever value made sense to you or whatever you liked looking at. I might do like 900px or something like that. Let's see if that's not too wide for my little laptop here. And then, so, okay, let's do that first. Check it. So there we go. It pulled it into 900 pixels, which is a bit narrower than the viewport here. And now to get it centered. And I will do margin 0 auto. And that's, as I was saying before, that's what you use margin for, like, more often than anything else, I think, is just go ahead and do a margin 0 auto. Now, I mean, there are other ways to do it. There always have been other ways to do it. But now you could do the whole thing with, well, could you? Yeah, you could. You could do the whole thing with Flexbox, actually. You could get HTML display flex and then use that in order to center the body element within it. So that actually might make more sense to do at this point. But I'm glad that you guys are hip to this now, because you are going to see this out there a lot when you look at other people's code. Okay, so I think that's it for the body element. Let me check it here. Yeah, maximum width. And to these things here, we added the background color for white. And then we'll go move on to the headings. So add a border top to the headings. So this is like straight out of the demo. Well, so is the max width, and you know, all this stuff is really out of the textbook demos. But add a top border to the headings containing the text hypertext markup language and cascading style sheets. So I was giving you a little clue here in case you like forgot to make those headings in your code. You can go back and say, oh, whoops, those are not supposed to be paragraphs after all. Let me go ahead and turn those to H3s or whatever, H somethings. So let me go ahead and just flip for those guys. I did them as H3s. I think most people did. And this is going to be a border top. And I said to make it the same color as the HTML background, which is this guy, RGB 240, 240, 240. Which of course you could copy and paste. And did I not save that? Border top. Because I'm forgetting the cardinal rule of doing borders, which is you always need to have at least a style in there. You need to have a border style in there, which is like thin, or rather solid, or dashed, or dotted, or something like that. I think we've only done solid borders, but that's what you almost always see. So now that I remember to do that, solid RGB, and I go over here and refresh, and now it is working there. So there is that color, just a light gray. That's what you often see for these little rules separating things. It's just kind of a lightweight one. Normally you don't want a heavy black line there. If you wanted to make it thin, well, I don't know, did I ask for it to be thin? Did I give you any other instructions beyond just that it's a border top? The color? No, I didn't. So you could totally leave it just as that if you wanted to. If you wanted it thinner, you could do...
I need my half a point back because you didn't give me that one. You actually knocked me off for half a point on that one.
For what did I say?
For the border, you said 2.5 for only the border was supposed to be only border top, but I did
Yes.
border all.
Yeah, but you did border all the way around. I asked for a top border only.
Okay, where did it say top border only?
It just said put a top border on CSS and HTML. That's
Yeah,
all right. I got hit pretty hard
Oh,
too.
add a top border.
Don't
Okay.
feel bad.
Well, I'm stupid then.
No, you're not stupid. Stop it.
You
Yeah,
nincompoop. Learn, darn you. Read.
Yeah, anybody can mess up with your reading instructions, and I'm hard on you guys about that because clients are going to be hard on you about that. So, okay, but what I did not make a fuss over is this bit here, because that was my fault for not telling you guys about the white background. Same color as the background color of the HTML element. Yeah, if you made it black or made it white or made it completely some other color, whatever, it's fine, as long as it was there. And then the last bit here, add a top padding of 1em to push the border away from the text a little, because this doesn't look good. It's too close. So I will go over here, and I like to put padding above border. Do padding top, and then I think I asked for 1em, yeah. And boom, there it is. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like the body element needs some padding on it. And I think that it does need one. And I think I kind of skipped past that, didn't I? Yes, change the padding to 1M. I totally missed that. So, speaking of not reading my own instructions, so going back up here again, and hopefully you'll be able to see, like, oh yeah, the text is actually touching the wall here. That doesn't look good. That's what tipped me off here. Padding, 1M, and there it is. Okay. So this whole thing's looking a little wide to me. Maybe I'll take this down to 600 pixels instead of 900 pixels. It is kind of a mobile design. There we go. That's a little easier to read, isn't it? All right, cool. So at this point, you've done everything. If you got all this stuff right, then I stop counting points, except that I do a last sweep to see who has managed to get some of the comments in here or the other extra credit that was offered. Let's see, that was not in here, but it was in the instructions here. So extra credit, I offered 3 things for extra credit. One is using HTML entities, and as I said in the review, you have to get all of them. Making the hyperlink open in a new window, and commenting. So since I mentioned commenting, let me do that first. I would take any comment that made any kind of sense whatsoever in either the HTML or the CSS, or both. Any of those would get you half a point of extra credit. So you could make a comment here, like I said, just anything, like, hey, start main, or something like that. Even if it seems totally redundant. We used to have to comment things a lot more in the HTML back when we only had divs to work with. But yeah, anything like that would be perfectly fine. Just put a comment in here that made some kind of sense and wasn't just like, oh boy, I'm making a comment. Or in the CSS, so I've already got one in here. Someone, I can't remember who, literally just said, yeah, body and headings. Like
Yeah,
this.
I did that.
And that totally worked, right? So if you did something like this, as long as it made sense to me when I looked at it, you pick up that extra credit for that. So either or, HTML or CSS. Let's see, the next one, I'll do opening the anchor link up in a new page or new tab. And where'd that link go? There it is. So this is something that we looked at when we did the review on Tuesday. And I think I told you guys there was going to be some extra credit for this, or that there might be some. And it's with a target attribute. And if I do target equals underscore blank, that is kind of like the generic message to the browser to open up this link in a new tab or a new window. I think they pretty much all do tabs now. It used to be all windows except for, I think, Safari. So now when I refresh this and I tap on the link, it opens up in a new tab instead of the current tab, which is useful. I mean, it's not only because you don't want to send people away from your website, they also don't want to be sent away from your website. When they follow an external link, they want to be able to do whatever it is they're doing there and then close it and wind up right back where they started from. And if they don't get that, then people get irritated by that. So it's a good accessibility thing, usability thing, UX. So that would be another little piece. Now, by the way, there are other things that you, well, let's not get into that right now. I'll just say there are other things in there. Sometimes you will see something like this, like target equals Bob. And that will seem to do the same thing. It's, okay, so, all right, now I'm committed. I'm going to save this and go back over here and refresh. And I tap on this, and look, it opens up in a new tab. So why even bother with underscore blank? Why not just like put in like literally anything without an underscore that I want to? Well, there is technically a difference between them. If you use underscore blank and the user keeps clicking on that link, it will keep opening up new windows or new tabs. It'll just keep going however many times it gets clicked, which can be dangerous sometimes because sometimes you trigger click events with JavaScript, and if it starts looping through something, then you can wind up with a lot of extra tabs. That's what underscore blank does. However, if you give it a name like this, target equals Bob or Jack or Hansel or whatever, then what it does is it opens up a new window and names that window so that now if the user keeps tapping on that link over and over again, it'll just keep opening up in the same new window. It'll keep opening up in the Bob window or the Bob tab instead of continually opening up new tabs. So anyway, I thought I'd head this off at the pass and just show you that, yeah, sometimes you see that, but it is actually, there is a difference between the two. This does something slightly different. Either one would be fine for my purposes, for the purposes of the test. Okay, and I think I just closed the wrong window, as I want to do. Let me crack this open again. Okay, so the last bit of extra credit, I was originally planning on having extra credit for the CSS, and it wound up all being HTML instead, is the HTML entities. And so you have to get them all, and what I'm looking for is the apostrophes, and there's one place where you have the straight quotes down here. So if you wanted to turn these into true typographic quotes, or curly quotes as they're sometimes called, then you wanted to get all of those and the apostrophes. Let's get those quotes, the double quotes first. So entities all start with an ampersand and end with a semicolon. Now there are all kinds of different sets of these, as you may have seen in that link that I put up in the useful links page. But they all have that one thing in common, no matter which set you're looking at. They start with the ampersand, they end with a semicolon. If they're going to
I was wondering why I didn't get that, and it's because I missed the apostrophes.
Oh, okay. Was that it? It might have been that you didn't get everything. Double check.
Oh no, I only did the quotes.
Okay, I see.
I know that for a fact.
Okay, cool. So the whole deal about typographic quotes is that the opening quote looks different from the closing quote. That's the whole thing about typographic quotes. So for this one, I do left double quote without the TE, right? LD quo. And there it is. If you can see that, there's an opening quote. And then the other one is going to be left double, or no, right double quote, RD quo. There we go. And there's the closing quote, which you guys, let's see, you probably can't see that well. Let's go over here and then zoom in a bit. Where is it? There we go. So with the sans serif font, it's like hardly noticeable, but they are different. These are arranged like 6s where it's thicker at the bottom, and these are arranged like 9s where it's thicker at the top. If you did it with times or something like that, they would be super noticeable, but these still look way better. And it's for readability, right? So you know what's an opening quote and what's a closing quote and so on. So there's that, and then there's several of these apostrophes in here, at least 2 or 3 of them. So again, ampersand and semicolon. And this one, you just do the same thing, but with a single quote instead of a double quote. So you do like a RS quo for right single quote. And where is it? Oh, it's not that one. There we go. That one's actually big enough to see, right? So there is the right single quote. And I'm just going to grab that entity and copy it and just go through and scan through. You could do a find and replace if you wanted to, but I think there's just a few places. What was that other one I was looking at here? First Yule. There it is. So paste that in, and then I think there was at least one other.
That's it.
That's it. There we go. Thank you. Boom. Okay, so that was the last piece of extra credit. And so I think that's it. I think we're done. So I'm ready to zip this up and submit it, right? What do you guys think?
No, you got to validate it.
I got to validate it. Yes. Nicely done. Got to validate it. You guys should do this with everything that you submit to me. And more importantly, everything that you submit to anybody else or share with anybody else. Make sure you take it through the validator. The other validators, like the Jigsaw validator for CSS, it's not that big a deal. But markup, yeah, it's a big deal. Okay, so I can go ahead. I think I've already got one of these open here. Yeah, there's one. So you could copy and paste the reason I don't like copying and pasting it in so much is because it already starts with some code here. So you just have to remember to like select all and like, okay, don't do that, but select all like this and then delete it and then paste yours in. which sometimes that's the easiest way to find a problem by, kind of continually editing the code here and then revalidating. But if you're doing some kind of a monolithic file here, then just go ahead and do a file upload. Choose file, and you guys have seen where I was just at. And let's see, unit 9. I told you guys that's the first thing I do and turn stuff in. And I'm going to grab my index.html, open it up, and check it. And if there are any problems, it'll let me know. And it's fine. I'm seeing green. The reason why I'm seeing the whole thing here is because I checked the source here. Sometimes I like checking outline as well, but we haven't really talked about that. But yeah, things are looking good. So now is when I would go in here and get ready to submit this. And what I've been having you guys do is go to your root directory and it's going to let me.
Compressed to zip file.
Why am I missing this? There it is. Thank you. Compressed to zip file. Boy, you sounded really irritated there. It's just in a slightly different place in the menu on a Mac, which is why I wasn't seeing it there. So there it is. There's the zip file. Go ahead and submit it. Although something came up yesterday about submitting things via Google Drive, so I'm considering that. That has some things to recommend it, and we may start doing that next week. We'll see. But for the time being, the instructions have always been to zip your stuff up and submit it as a zip folder. So that's what to do through today at least. Right. Okay. I think that is it then. So does anyone have any questions about this?
No questions.
I don't have any questions, but I would certainly like to hear your response later on to my comment that I left in the private comments on the midterm.
Okay, good.
But you can just comment back to me.
Okay, that's cool. This is the only thing that I have for you guys is lab tonight. Let me go ahead and get the recording stopped here.